Welcome to Season 6 of the Long-Winded One podcast. This is Spoiler Sessions, Lit RPG, the only show where spoilers don't spoil anything. We're digging into fan theories, side characters, and the lore office left in the drawer.
All right, welcome everyone to another episode of Spoiler Sessions. This is season 6 of the podcast and episode 5. And with me today, I'm pleasantly surprised to have Tao Wong visit, and we're going to discuss 2 series. Even though he's written, it must be like, is it like 30 books at this point?
50.
No way. Is it really?
Depending on how you count it, it's 50 plus easily.
Oh man. Well,
yeah.
So last night I got to interview Dawn Chapman, who I know you know.
Yeah.
And she's been doing this probably as long as you have, since around 2017, 2018, right?
Yeah.
You got your start in around, well, you say you've been writing for a really long time, but you started on Royal Road in about 2018. Is that right?
2017 actually.
Okay.
As well. Early part of 2017. And that was, I basically consider myself the second major wave of the Western lit RPG people right off. So I started reading Viridian Gate and Ascend Online and Legend of Red Deadly Ghost Hound on Royal Road, and they were partly the reason why I started writing back then. So my books released on Amazon after all of them. They've done all their releases after Aileron and Blaze and everyone else who was back then. Charles Dean, Dawn, obviously. I think she was, and she's been writing for ages too, before that.
So. Yeah. So last night we discussed, she showed me, she has a ship called the Razor's Edge that's a part of 2 of her series, and the layouts that she did for this ship and as backgrounds. It was awesome to hear. But anyway, the only reason I bring that up is to say that you've been doing this for a very long time. And today we're going to be discussing the System Apocalypse and 1,000 Li. And again, just so we remind each other, we're focused today on unused scenes, unwritten lore, fan theories, and side characters.
Yep.
And you're very active in the community. Before we start discussing that, I know you're interested in helping new authors, navigate contracts and this whole idea of building a business as an author.
Yeah.
And we discussed a little bit of that before we clicked live here. Is there anything you want to say about that? Anything you have coming up that you want to tell people about?
Well, I mean, if you're in Canada, I am part of the Toronto Indie Author Conference, which is basically the equivalent of the 20 bucks to 50K Author Nation, NINC, author business conferences, we're just doing up in Canada so that it's cheaper for Canadians rather than having to fly down into the US and take on all of those costs. So this is our 3rd year running it. And yeah, it's relatively cheap, all things considered. We cover a lot of the publishing business side of things. I do have a book on marketing strategy for authors, which is my background's in marketing. So, it's the area that I do know. It is marketing strategy, not tactics. If you want tactical stuff, I have a entire blog on mylifemytao.com about a lot of the tactical stuff and the business side and details that you won't find in a strategy book to read about there. Last thing is, if you're a new author, I am always happy to look at contracts. I am not a lawyer. I have to say this. And one of my first pieces of advice is hire an entertainment or IP lawyer who specializes in publishing contracts. And I will have a blog post with actual contact information for people who actually I have used. But the fact stands that I can give advice on negotiations and stuff like that because I do see a lot of contracts. I probably have a 40 or 50 page document, file folder filled with other contracts that I've seen over the years from people. And I read all of them, try to get a feel of it. It's necessary. If you're not reading it regularly, it becomes a problem.
Right. So you recognize what you're looking at. A lot of people probably do not.
I do. I have a little bit of I have been self-employed for going on 30 years. No, 20 years now. 20 plus years. 2007, 20, nearly 20 years now. I had a business background beforehand, marketing, obviously, but general business. So I know contract law to some extent, in the sense that I can read the legalese, but I still make mistakes, which is why I say go and ask the lawyer. Quite often my lawyers will go, I don't have to worry about that. That's fine.
We acknowledge your disclaimer. Yeah. So if I post your website in the description of this video, people can find you that way.
Work? Yeah. There's a contact form on my website. Great.
Well, let's get right into the books. Would you like to start with System Apocalypse or 1,000 Li?
Let's go with 1,000 Li.
Okay. 1,000 Li. Can you please give us, and again, this is spoiler sessions, right?
Yep.
So I would imagine people who are listening to this either don't mind spoilers or have read your books. So we can give a little bit away. We don't want to give it all away, right? So could you tell us a little bit about that book series?
Okay. Well, 1,000 Li is basically a cultivation series that starts with the main protagonist, Wu Ying, being a farmer in secondary world, ancient China equivalent. And it shows his progress from being a farmer to becoming or trying to become an immortal. Unlike most of my series, there is actually a happy ending, almost purely happy ending. And he does, and there's a sequel series that I'm writing and will be releasing next year called Celestial Cataclysms. But it's a 12-book series. It's complete now. You don't have to read anymore unless you enjoy the characters, in which case, the epic fantasy sequel series will be catnip, I guess, for you. But yeah, there's a lot of characters. It goes through his progress and his numerous setbacks across the period. A lot of 1,000 Li is about a personal journey. There are external conflicts and things that go on and wars and stuff like that. But it is very much a personal journey about enlightenment, and it leans heavily on Taoism and my understanding of Taoism, which again, I am not a sage in any sense, but it has some basic ideas based off it.
And I just have to get this out there. For me, for my own sort of knowledge here, there are these two terms that come up a lot in cultivation novels, right? And that's xianxia and wuxia, right? Am I pronouncing those right? I've heard people pronounce wuxia, right? Is the popular? Wuxia. Yeah. Could you tell us the difference between the two, and where your series kind of lands in terms of straddling the two?
Okay, so wuxia is translates as martial heroes, and it basically is low fantasy, if you want to think of it that way. It is set in ancient China. It is about martial heroes with super-powered martial arts, but there are generally no gods, sometimes spirit beasts, but generally not. It is very much about the Jianghu, which is the world of martial artists as you go through it. So xianxia is the translated is Taoist immortal heroes, right? The xian is the Taoist immortal. Heroes are the xia. So to be xianxia, you basically have to have Taoist immortals involved, which generally then involves spirit creatures, dragons, chilling stuff like that.
So I'm reading Beware of Chicken now, and so there's spirit creatures in that story. So I'm with you.
Yeah. So almost all the works that you're going to read generally in cultivation will be xianxia. It technically, cultivation stories are technically xiuxian. So it is specifically the cultivation towards immortality, or cultivation to becoming a Taoist immortal. So it's a subset of xianxia. More, for some reason, I think it's because it's a little too complicated. People don't translate xiuxian, and so they just use cultivation, which is fine, to describe cultivation novels.
Okay. And 1,000 Li, where does that?
It's definitely xianxia.
Okay.
It's very much the cultivation progress towards being immortal. The first few books are very much more grounded, and we are. I think 1,000 Li is probably one of the least powered. I guess the power levels that I use in 1,000 Li are significantly lower than you see in Beware of Chicken, is, for example, where, at one point he punches and there's a hole in the mountain. Technically, my characters can do that. You don't see that until like book 12 kind of thing, 11, 12, where they're actually going out and reaching that stage. So that's like the top end of the power scale levels.
And your book series, there are 12, am I right to say there are 12 books in that series? And it seems like they grow as you read, right? So the scope of the series, right? The books 1, 2, and 3 are mostly around the main character and the sect that he's in. Is that correct? And then it kind of expands from there, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And so we have this, so going back to the unused scenes and the unwritten lore part of this podcast, you mentioned to me that there are new scenes in the print edition. Is that right? Can you talk about that?
Yep. So I signed a print-only deal with Ace Books last year. And so they are reprinting 1,000 Li books 1 to 3. So on March 10th, 1,000 Li, the first step, is being released by them in hardcover. For that, I also wrote a exclusive short story for each of the books. So there are 3 exclusive short stories that are going to be released, and they are going to focus on one of the main characters that we don't normally see, that we see relatively regularly, but they don't have a huge impact on the story except when they come in. But we know what's happening to them because of what's happening if you've read the series before. This just fills in the blanks of all the things that Wu Ying never sees and never really realizes until much later. So it's a kind of nice side glimpse into a whole different side of the sect and the politics and the things that are happening that actually impact him much later down the series.
So are we calling these books like book 5.5, or do they fall in line like that?
Those are very much they're just add-on standalones, shorts. They don't have to be read, kind of thing. But if you've read the series before and you're reading those shorts, it will reveal a lot of things that weren't there before. They're just add-on shorts that are exclusive to the print edition.
Okay. Great. Well, that's March 10th, you said, right?
Yep.
They're coming out March 10th, and they're going to be separated by, you said, a month apiece?
3 months. So
3 months.
The 3 books will be coming out every 3 months since then. So about March. Next one will be about June, and the next one after that will be around September.
Okay. Awesome. Great. Well, let's stay on 1,000 Li.
Yep.
Okay. And these under the categories of fan theories and side characters, we have kind of a category that we're going to be talking about in both of your series, and that's this idea of kind of unwritten endings for characters, right? And I know you have a lot to say on this, so I'm gonna ask you to elaborate on this. But the first person I want to talk about is Master Cheng. So if you could talk about, please.
Yeah, Master Cheng. There's things happen in book 5, and he gets injured and he gets left behind in a cave, in a cultivation cave, basically gravely injured. And that's it. We never see anything. We never hear anything about him. Occasionally they think about him, but there's no indication on whether or not he's alive or dead at that point. And I did that on purpose for a couple of reasons. One is I actually have an idea of what I want to do with that, and what that particular dangling portrait is going to do. It's not going to happen it doesn't happen in Thousand Li, obviously. It's actually something that's going to play out in Celestial Cataclysms, the sequel series. And that will be important. The other reason for doing that, though, is because it's a trope, right? There's a lot of tropes about, hey, this great master is away in secluded cultivation, and we don't know what's going to happen. Is this great master actually dead, or is he going to come back and kick ass afterwards? And it's a dangling trope that happens regularly inside xianxia cultivation works, even wuxia works to some extent, where the hermit, sword sage is a hermit and goes away, and you don't know if he's going to come back and kick ass, or if he's actually really died, kind of thing. So I like playing with those tropes. I like using them for my purpose, and so in this case, Master Cheng's disappearance is also a galvanizing factor in a lot of Wu Ying's progress and his change, and what he has to do going on forwards. And so I left it dangling on purpose. And I'll go into why I left it dangling on top of that when we talk about the next scene.
Sure. And I always, a few weeks ago, I got to speak with JD Molinary, and my, he's very big on kind of system building, and I always come back to Tolkien. I don't know if you're a Tolkien fan, right? But he left a lot of those things, the details that the readers didn't know, kind of dangling out there, and I think it makes your world feel bigger, right? That there's stuff that's happening that you're not privy to. Right?
Yeah.
Do you agree with that? Or
I do. I think that you have to be careful about how much world building you leave out there without explaining. And it's a real trick. If you want to look at someone who does that a lot, modern day, Malazan and Steven Erikson does that. But I would say that for book one especially, it's a pain and a half to get through, because there is so much that is just left out there. Like there'll be titles that he gives. Anomander Rake has like half a dozen titles, right, and they all have a meaning behind them, but it's never explained. And so you're sitting there, and then this is the thing that I have a problem with him slightly with, is he uses those titles interchangeably when he's talking about the guy throughout the book, and you're like,
I do the same thing.
It's a pain in the ass to try to follow. If your character has half a dozen titles, I'm like, oh, you better give me more than just a title to remind me who this character is. Otherwise, I'm going to forget. And then I'm going to be struggling halfway through the scene, going, who is this?
Well, I think an author probably should pair the two together, right? At least the first couple of times, so that if you are going to use them interchangeably, and you might, depending on who's speaking. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I agree with you. It's a crafting, right? I do it too, to some extent. I do switch out titles and whatnot, but you have to be. It's a crafting and paying attention to how often it happens. And this is where having a third party come in and look at it and go, hey, this is very confusing. Right. Will help.
I do think too, like, depending on the genre that you're reading or writing, it's certain genres are more prone to that sort of thing, right? Like I come back to Tolkien, anything with mythology, right? Tolkien, there's at least two different elf languages, right? So it could be, you could be speaking about somebody in Quenya or Sindarin, right? In my novels, it's all Celtic fantasy, right? So there's the Gaelic, essentially Gaelic version, and then the kind of the English version of things. And so a lot of it's language based for what I've experienced.
Yeah.
Anyway, I could talk all day about this sort of thing.
Yeah.
Let's go. Can we switch gears to the system apocalypse?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And again, so there is, speaking of book 5.5, there is an unwritten book for system. Oh, before we do that, we need a 10,000-foot view of that story.
Okay.
Can you give that to us?
So the System Apocalypse is one of the first lit RPG apocalypses out there. So a lot of the tropes that you see came from, Randomly Ghost Hound and myself and, a few others who started building out basically everything that everyone has used since then. So John Lee is the main character, and he starts out in Whitehorse, Kluane National Park, up in the Yukon, and he's out camping. He's a grumpy. He's had a bad day. He's found out his girlfriend is cheating on him, and he goes out to go camping to get clear his head, get on with his life, and the world ends. And so he's got to struggle through the Yukon wilderness to get home. And so he gets a lot of perks and benefits because he's in basically a death zone, and he manages to survive. And the book, there's a 12-book series, is completed ages ago, like 4 years now, and it follows the first 6 books is basically what I consider the Earth arc, where it follows him helping to retake or reconquer Earth and save as many people as possible on Earth. And that takes place over a period of about 6 years or so. And then after that, we switch over to the space arc, where he goes with a whole bunch of other Earthers to deal with all of these aliens who have come into Earth. And so the next 6 books are kind of a space arc. It's all tied together with basically one of the system quest, which it starts in book 1, and it really starts picking up steam as it goes along through the series. And so the book 12 is basically the ending with John finding out what the system quest means.
Got you. And we'll talk maybe about that in a little bit, if that's okay.
Yep.
So let's go. Before I ask the next question, I'm curious. So the 2 series that we're talking about are 12-book series. Do you have something with the number 12? Is that?
Funnily enough, System Apocalypse was meant to be 9. And then as I was writing it, I went, nope. The first 6 books were fine. And then I realized that to do the intergalactic world justice, right, and to give scope, I needed more than basically a book to finish it up. So I kind of added another book to it, another 3 books to it. The 12, I'm actually more leaning towards like 9-book series now, I think. So Celestial Cataclysm is going to be about 9, but I like writing in trilogies. So each of my series are written in trilogies. So you finish the first 3, and it finishes one major arc with an overarching storyline with the next 3 books and so on and so forth. So it's nice and compact. I can create an omnibus from that. And
right. So 9 or 12 works really well for that sort of thing.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. Understand. So as you were talking, I started thinking about. System Apocalypse is kind of a subgenre of our genre, right? Would you say that, or does it span genres?
Yeah, it's very much the apocalypse in a lit RPG setting kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I started thinking about, do you have like a list of subgenres that like if somebody had to say, okay, because our genre is huge, right? There are cozies, there are dungeon core books, there are harem novels, right? There's the System Apocalypse. What am I missing inside of?
Oh god, there's so much. Time loop ones, kingdom building ones,
the card building
isekai, card ones, isekai, pure portal stories, which are another ones. Time loop, I said, reincarnation stories as well is another one. Generally, that's paired with your portal stories, but not necessarily. Urban fantasy ones, not as popular right now. And as I said, cozy.
I think my wife would beg to differ, agree to disagree on the whole urban fantasy. She loves those things, but
oh no, urban fantasy lit RPG.
Right.
That's not as popular for some reason. There's only a few, and not many who have actually done well.
Well, that's for anybody out there who wants to write a good urban fantasy and lit RPG. There you go. So let's talk about the unwritten book 5.5 is for System Apocalypse. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So what happens is in book 5, there's a cliffhanger. John gets grabbed and thrown in through a portal into a Forbidden World dungeon. Well, actually, a Forbidden Planet. It's not really a dungeon. And he disappears for 4 years. And then he comes back in book 6. And so there's this kind of 4-year gap in between. And I've held off on writing it fully. There is a short story and a novelette written about it, about both those periods already. And you can find the novelette in the second System Apocalypse short story anthology. And I think the short story itself is somewhere. I can't remember where. It's around. I've written so many shorts. But the reason why I didn't write it is because when you enter the Forbidden Zone, you actually don't get stats information anymore. So it stops being a lit RPG.
I see.
And so it's this weird dichotomy where the 4 years that he's in is relatively important in terms of his stats growth. Because when he comes back, he gets all his stats and power-ups and everything afterwards. But in between, in that 4-year period, he gets nothing. He's basically stable, which I know with readers would be a problem.
Yeah. Well, you might be the first author to isekai your book series into a non-lit RPG series.
It's true. So it's a weird thing where writing book 5, and also book 5, really, there's not a lot of character development or things to talk about. John goes in there and it's a death world. He fights and he fights and he survives and he fights a little more and then he fights more. It's not a lot of... It's great for a short story, but it's not great as a book.
Gotcha.
It gets tiring writing that, and it gets tiring reading that. And so it's one of those things where people have asked for it, but I struggle to figure out how to write it. I have an idea for how I could potentially do the whole thing by changing mediums, basically, and making a comic out of it.
Oh, yeah.
However, I don't have time.
Right. Well, we have 3 minutes left together, so
Yeah.
I want to cover at least one more thing that we have to talk about, and maybe we save the thing that we talked about, which could give away like a major spoiler. We'll push that off for maybe interview 2 sometime in the future.
Yeah.
So let's talk about. You have 2 characters from System Apocalypse that come up a lot with your fans, right? And kind of what happens to them. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, Mikito and Ali. Ali's John's spirit companion, and he is he gets basically given to Mikito, who's John's constant companion throughout this entire 12-book series. Platonic, nothing goes on with them ever. Would not ever happen. It's just a bad idea. But those two go off into the sunset together. I actually, one of these days, I really will write a story about Mikito and Ali and, what they're up to. But the ending of the series actually gives you an idea. Problems occur because of what happens. And so they have to go off and deal with those problems. And so that's their basically future where they're running about fixing those, I think, fractures in space, basically, that have come about. And so they are basically fighting creatures from beyond. So that's the story that has to be told. I just need to find time.
So some of these, I don't want to call them loose ends because they're intentionally loose, but we'll call them loose ends. So some of these loose ends are part of the trope, part of making a bigger world, but it's also partly that you want to tell those stories someday, right?
I do. Sometimes you just want to leave an opening for yourself to come back to a universe and go, hey, I'm going to finish writing this. I just need some time. Part of it is figuring out how best to tackle that, right? Whether it's to do it as a standalone book or if it's a 3-book series or whatever. And it becomes, and here's the publishing side of it, where as a publisher, I look at it and go, ooh, a standalone book in Lit RPG does not sell. And so then it's like, ooh, do I want to spend 3 months writing a book that will not sell? You know, on the other side of the equation, it's the writer side of me because I want to finish writing that, God damn it. So it's always a balance.
100%. Yeah. Well, we have reached the end of our time together. I think Dawn made it into the chat. She said, I almost missed it, but she's been watching. Is there anything that you have on the horizon that you want to tell people about briefly before we say goodbye?
I think the biggest thing that we've got is all the 1,000 Li reprints, the trad pub editions coming out on March 10th. After that, in a few months, the first book in the epic fantasy sequel to 1,000 Li comes out, and that's a 300,000 word chonker of a book. And yeah, no,
wow.
It's a chonker. Every book in that series is going to be at least 300,000 words. That's a 1 a year release kind of thing, because that's just
That's an expensive audiobook to produce.
It is. I've got Travis Baldry who promised to go and do it, so I will be using him for that, and it's going to be expensive. Yeah. But hey, he's worth it.
He is worth it. Yes. Well, thank you so much. We look forward to those books coming out in March, and we'll see you. Hopefully we'll get you to Lit RPG Con this summer.
We'll see how it goes. Yeah.
All right. Take care.
All right. Take care, Jared. Bye.
Bye-bye.